Black Myth Wukong. 2.4 million peak concurrent players on Steam, 10 million copies sold in just 3 days, second highest peak for a game on Steam ever, cementing itself as an absolute cultural phenomena. Well, that cultural phenomena was made in China.
China?
And it made everyone in India ask the same question. Why doesn't India have this yet? Well, because here's the number that doesn't make any sense. 488 million. That is the estimated number of gamers in India in 2024. Way more than the entire population of the United States. On paper, India should be a game development superpower. We have the numbers, we have the talent, and we definitely have the appetite. And yet, if I ask you to name a single global blockbuster AAA title that came out of India, you probably can't name any. So the question everyone is asking is, if China can produce a masterpiece like Wukong, why is India, with all its tech prowess, stuck making Ludo clones? Well, my name is Umar Zaman, and today in this video, we'll be uncovering why India can't build a Black Myth Wukong yet at Outlook Respawn. To understand why we don't have a Wukong, you have to look at the hardware. Remember that 488 million number? Here's the catch. Almost 90% of those are mobile gamers. This creates what economists might call a market failure for AAA developers. If you are an Indian studio and you want to spend 5 years building a high-fidelity AAA PC title, you are effectively ignoring 90% of your domestic customers. AAA games like Call of Duty, Elden Ring require high-end PCs or current-gen consoles in India. This PC gaming market is less than 10% of the size of the mobile gaming market. Most people's gaming rig is a budget Android phone and device. So if you're an investor, you're going to fund a $40 million or 350 crore on a risky AAA PC game for a tiny audience, or are you going to fund a gambling app that can run on a $100 phone? Moving on to more uncomfortable mathematical numbers, the average Indian earns 21,000 rupees a month. Cost of a PlayStation 5 is 50,000 rupees, more than 2 months of salary. Gaming PC that can run AAA games, 80,000 rupees minimum, almost 4 months of income. Then there are the actual games costing up to 5,000 rupees for the new AAA title. That's almost 25% of our monthly salary. This is why 90% of Indian gamers play on mobile, not by choice, but by economics. India's gaming market is worth $1 billion, but only 33% of Indian gamers spend money. That too primarily on mobile games. So your actual market for a 5,000 premium PC game may be 1 lakh people if you're lucky. And here's where the math completely breaks down. A AAA game costs at least 350 crores to make. With the Indian salary advantages, at 5,000 rupees per copy, you need to sell 7 lakh sales just to break even. 7 lakhs from a market of 1 lakh who can afford it. The math just doesn't add up. This situation has already played out. Raji, an ancient epic based on Indian mythology, an absolutely beautiful game, even getting nominated for the best debut of the Game Awards 2020. International critics loved it. However, it struggled in India. Not because it was bad, but because the market that could afford it just wasn't big enough. India's per capita GDP is $2,800. China's $13,800. For an American, that's 5,000 rupee game costs 0.7% of their monthly income. For us, 25%. China sits in the middle, better than us, but still behind the West, but crucially good enough to make a domestic market for premium games. Now, you might be thinking, but wait, doesn't Black Myth Wukong just came out of nowhere? And that is absolutely not the case. Let me tell you how Black Myth Wukong actually happened. Studio Game Science started making mobile games, basically survival work until the time was right. They waited until 2018 when they saw something crucial. China's PC gaming market had matured. Steam users in China were beginning to outnumber the US. This meant the domestic market could support a premium game. So they got a 5% investment from Tencent that opened doors to Nvidia, PlayStation. Everything led to them making a AAA game experience that could mark China's entrance as a gaming superpower. 6 years and $40 million later, Black Myth Wukong launched. 88% of players were Chinese, but the game launched globally on day one. That domestic market gave them a foundation. They could count on sales at home while targeting international audiences. And because of that success, we are now seeing a wave of Chinese AAA titles like Phantom Blade Zero and Tides of Annihilation in 2026. This underlines something very important. China has a higher per capita GDP, which means more people who can afford premium games. They have a mature PC gaming culture with paying customers, and they have a domestic market large enough to fund AAA development. We have a lower purchasing power, a mobile-first market not by choice but by necessity, and no domestic base to fund a 350 crore game. Until our capita GDP catches up, and that's decades away, we won't have a domestic market that can support a AAA development. So here's what Indian studios must accept. You cannot build AAA games for India. You must build games from India for the world, priced at $60 for the US, Europe, and Japanese markets where people can actually afford these games. Use regional pricing in India, 1,500 rupees instead of 5,000 for goodwill. But don't count on Indian sales for profitability. Studios are already trying this. Unleash the Avatar, Age of Bhaarat, Mukti, Raji, Kalyuga, all ambitious projects are in the pipeline. But they have to be globally competitive from day one. Hades 2 levels of polish, Expedition 33 levels of quality, not good for an Indian game, just good, period. When they have succeeded, most buyers won't be Indian. Most revenue won't come from India. That's not a failure, that's the strategy. Gaming superpower doesn't mean most players. It means players who can fund the industry, players who buy games at scale, players who create a market that sustains AAA development. We have the talent, we have the stories, the passion. Indian developers are some of the best in the world. China's path was through the domestic market, fund studios, build qualities, and then get global success. Ours will be to build global quality, make money abroad, then reinvest and wait for the domestic market to catch up. It is possible, just much harder. But every year, more Indian studios are taking that harder path, making games that compete globally, building the infrastructure, training the talent. And when India's market does mature, and it will, we'll have the studios that already know how to compete on the world stage. We'll have developers who have shipped AAA games, we'll have the experience that China built over 2 decades. We are not a game development superpower yet, but we're building the very foundation. The talent is here, the ambition is here, the games are coming. India's gaming superpower story isn't about where we are, it's about where we're going. Let me know in the comments about what you think. Till then, my name was Umar Zaman. You have been watching Outlook Respawn, and I will see you all in the next one.